Price. Um, I am up here in Fort Bidwell, California, which is about an hour from Alturas, where my host site is. And like Cindy said, I've always been involved in food sovereignty, regenerative agriculture, all of that. So when this GrizzlyCorps position came up nearby, I was like, oh, that's something I really want to do. And yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about it. So first talking about the traditional territory. So my host site, the Pit River Tribe, we're actually the only tribal partner right now for GrizzlyCorps, so it was a really unique experience being one of the first. So the Pit River Tribe, there's about 3,700 members, and it's actually 11 different bands. So they weren't always one tribe, and the whole traditional territory is over 100 square miles. So through Modoc, Siskiyou, and Shasta counties, I'm pretty sure. Um, so that is definitely a big undertaking on how these different 11 bands, autonomous bands, they're already doing their own thing before they got combined into one tribe. What that looks like in tribal operations and food sovereignty and all of that. And I don't know, can you guys see my cursor on the screen? Okay, yeah. So up here by Goose Lake, this is where my tribe is. I'm Northern Paiute, and I'm also a Wampanoag descendant, but that's over in Massachusetts, so we won't worry about that. But so for the Fort Bidwell right here, there's this big mountain range going through it. Fort Bidwell was more of a nomadic tribe. We'd go up through Nevada, up to Oregon, um, versus the Pit River, who a lot of their traditional foods lifestyle based around the Pit River that ran through here. So even just being on the other side of this mountain range, where this is more the Pit River, this side is more desert, um, the food systems looked really different. So that was definitely a step, coming over here. And even just we have one band, the Giritkud or Groundhog Eater band over here, versus they have 11 bands that are collaborating on these projects. Um, so for example, from my tribe, I know that in the spring we traveled to the hills in the east to gather food. In summer, we would go up more north to Oregon and stuff like that, and roam and kind of move with the food. Where, whereas the Pit River more stationary. This is the food cycle um, that we had, but because of the way the tribes were structured and stuff, we can't move any longer. The Pit they moved more, but within that territory, but they also can't access all the same places, so we kind of have to um, use other means to add to our food systems and to our tribal food sovereignty because we can't still do this roaming. We can't fish on the river like we used to, or the Pit River used to, or still access those same food groups. So that's where the greenhouse comes into play. So the goal of this project is to achieve food sovereignty for the 3,700 members of the Pit River tribe, um, using the greenhouse, assist the other tribal greenhouses in the area, like the Fort Bidwell greenhouse, for my tribe, and developing those mutual relationships. Growing traditional herbs and medicines is really important. That's something I got the opportunity to interview a lot of the tribal members, and that was something everyone wanted. They wanted to see traditional herbs, traditional foods, and especially the medicines. Um, and then another part of the project was producing native plants for restoration. For example, the Klamath Dam restoration project that the Klamath tribe is working on. They need a lot of seedlings, saplings, everything to replant the areas where the river was taking up space in the dams. So one of our big focus was being able to provide that for other tribes for restoration, and especially concentrating on getting plants from that area. So, for the dam, for the Klamath, we'd get traditional plants from the Klamath area, not from like over here. We tried to grow plants that were actually native to that area. Um, so we definitely have the space. This is the Pit River Greenhouse Complex. It was built in 2015, and it was actually originally built to grow weed. That was when it started being legalized. That was going to be like the big revenue for the tribe, having it up and running. The you can't see it well back in the back, but there's a quarter-mile long Four Seasons greenhouse, so it can grow all year long. It's huge. That's where a lot of the production was going to happen. And then there's also 40, I can't remember the dimensions. I think it's 30 by 90 feet long hoop houses, and it's all over 12 acres. And we actually can use the area outside this fence as well, which right now is a lot of willows, trees. But so it was built in 2015 to grow weed, but it was only operational for about 6 months, and not even fully operational. They were just growing in a couple houses um, before it got shut down in a big FBI and police raid. Actually, some of the pictures I use in here are from the raid that they were taking when they were getting pictures ahead of time. But it was a really difficult situation um, for the tribe because weed was legalized in California. And as a sovereign nation, that's something the tribe should have been able to decide for themselves. But because it was still illegal through the federal government, it would it was used to as an excuse to raid and shut down these operations, whether or not that was a violation of sovereignty. I don't know, but it happened, and it wasn't something the tribe was able to recover from from the greenhouses because like they cut all the power lines, they removed a lot of stuff, a lot of tribal members were arrested. It was a lot. Um, so it's that was all in 2015, and it's not been used since then. So it was in a big state of disrepair coming in. Um, I think I have some pictures. Something that happened about 5 years ago, we had a really heavy snowfall, and literally it was just left as is. So all the plastic was still on the greenhouses. Um, so when it snowed that heavy, the weight collapsed about 20 of the greenhouses that were outside. So they were no longer usable. A lot of the plastic and stuff you can see over here or random supplies were just left there and just kind of sat and weathered, rotted. Actually, the first couple of weeks was just trying to pick up all of the random plastic and stuff because all the plastic on the houses also just disintegrated and was scattered everywhere. So a big part of the project was just like, how do we um, get all this stuff that is now trash? Although some of it we could still use, like the fans and stuff, but um, yeah, just collecting it. So this is me. This was the first piece of trash we threw away. I hopped in there. We just started getting these big dumpsters and filling them up. I think we did like three of these in like the first couple of months, just filling it up with stuff. There's also a lot of this metal that we just put in piles because there's no close recycling centers up here. So that's a goal we still have on like how can we recycle this, reuse all the metal. We're trying to give some away to local members who might want to use it to like build their own little greenhouse, something they could do. And going back, so the first phase was the cleanup phase, and we actually got a crew of 11 people out there for the tear down of all these greenhouses. It took, I think, 2 weeks with 11 people getting all of those 20 greenhouses down, just cutting them up, hauling them. Um, that was Nick who was getting the siding off. And these are covered in screws. Every single thing was screwed together. So about five people were always just sitting there with a little gun, just going through, unscrewing everything. Um, so that was a big part of the initial phase. The next phase was more the restoration. side, getting things working again, I got the opportunity to be an apprentice with Big Dog Electric, who had originally done the electricity, and with Nick, who you saw on the last slide, and Daniel, who's our other Grizzly Corps member on this project. We tore down all the old electric and put it up in the Four Seasons greenhouse. That was a couple of month long process, and but it was really educational for me and just getting to see how it all worked, how so that me and Daniel could still operate it and pass on that knowledge and just really understand how everything went together. The other part were all these grow bags. These were all left basically in just boxes or piles afterwards because this is what they were growing in. But we wanted to reuse them, so me and Daniel started filling up these rows with all the green grow bags. And the dirt was actually on the other side of the complex. And we only had wheelbarrows at first, and then we got like a little John Deere tractor. But so a lot of the winter was just filling up all these grow bags so that we could grow in the spring, um, and fitting a water system on them to work with the bags. We still had some green O-rings left. So just trying to work with the supplies that we had left. So yeah, so it wouldn't be so wasteful and just being able to reuse everything. Um, the other part was training. So now we're going after the restoration phase. Well, training was a part of that also, being able to work with the electricity. But something I really valued from Grizzly Corps was the opportunity to do all this training. Um, this is a picture from when we did a chainsaw training just right up on the hill behind the res. Just the beginning chainsaw training. A really unique part that we did was the cultural specialist training. Um, if you're not familiar with like wildland firefighting, on a firefighting team you need a cultural specialist or natural resource advisor, someone who's going and saying, hey, there's a lot of invasive species in that area. You don't want to run a bulldozer through that and disturb all that ground because then they'll spring back. So cultural specialist, especially work with cultural artifacts, archaeological sites, um, things that are significant to the tribe, in this case, Pit River. So there was, I can't remember how many of us, but from the tribe, through the tarot program, they got a bunch of tribe members together. First, we did the natural resource training. We also did like the basic 40 firefighter training. The goal is to get a team of tribe members who are familiar with their cultural sites, available and ready for when if there is a fire, they're able to be on the ground making the decision saying you can't go in that area. Um, you need to preserve this area. Just but that are tribal members, so they really know the sites they're protecting. Um, and I also got to participate in some other conferences with other tribes, like the leadership conference, and I got to do the master food preserver. That was a really awesome part of the experience. Um, and so going forward with the project, we want to focus on community engagement, cultural integration, and just community health. That was a big part of it, working with the clinic, getting healthy foods in these communities. I am actually leaving after this. I'm back to school with my educational board. I'm going to Northwest Indian College and continuing my tribal education, continuing in food sovereignty, and just expanding my knowledge. So I'm excited I won't be able to keep going with the project, but I think what we built and getting all the structure in place will really allow us to flourish and the whole greenhouse structure, and there's just so much we can do with it. Um, and yeah, so expect big things out of Northeast California. This is the largest facility in the area, and it's a lot of work, but Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Thank